I want to shift focus a little bit and bring on a guest. My guest today is Maxime Bernier, leader and founder of the People's Party of Canada. So Maxime Bernier founded that party in 2018 after leaving the Conservative Party of Canada. He was a member of parliament under the Conservatives for the riding in Beauce, Quebec from 2006 to 2019. During his time in the Harper government, he was in cabinet. He was Minister of Industry, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and then Minister of State for Small Business. It's great to have Maxime on the show today. And Maxime, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Candice. I'm very pleased to be with you.
Great. So I want to talk a little bit about the recent decision made by the Leaders Debate Commission. They came out with new eligibility rules for participating in the debate. Now, we all hope that an election is coming very soon. We all hope that we'll be able to vote to replace this terrible Justin Trudeau Liberal government. But it's important that we hear from other parties. And it seems to me, Max, that the Leaders Debate Commission has changed its rules deliberately to exclude you. So I'll just run through a little bit about what's happened. Back in 2021, they stated that parties need to have either 4% of the vote, one elected MP, or 4% in polling. Most recently, you're polling at around 5% of the country, but you don't have any seats. And so the new rules that they brought in says that you now need to meet two of the three criteria, meaning that you have to have an MP, 4% nationally polling, and 4% in the last election. And so it seems like they've changed these rules, Max, deliberately to exclude your party. So my question to you is, why do you think they're doing this?
You're right about that. Actually, they're changing their rules at every election to be sure that we won't participate. Why they're doing that? Because they don't want to have a real debate at the readers' debate. We are, as you know, Candice, the only national political party that is speaking, against mass immigration, for mass deportation, on a very, very important issues for the country. We are the only voice. And actually, we had 840,000 people, Canadians, who voted for us at the last election. So for me, that's censorship. They are censoring these people, and our voice is not there. Actually, you're right. I had a discussion with the Leaders Debate Commission a couple of months ago, and they called us because they said, that will be the same criteria. Bernier had 4% of more than 4% of the vote at the last election, so he will be in the national debates. And by the way, we want to have an interview with Bernier, and we are doing that. We, the Leaders Debate, with every leader to know what would be the best format for the Leaders Debate. So I was very pleased with that. But that was a huge surprise for us. Last week, they came with a new rule. And you're right, because they can use the polls, and they are saying, 28 days before the election, they will do an average of polls across the country. And if we don't have 4%, we won't be able to participate in the national debates. They did the same thing in 2021, and we were at that time about at 4.5% in the polls. And they use a poll that was putting us at 1%. Our average went down to 3.2, and they said you're not able to participate. So they're using the same tricks to us to be sure that we won't participate. And that's why I'm saying, Canadians, if you believe in this democracy, because that decision is undemocratic, it is unfair, and we need to be there to have that debate with other leaders. So we have a petition on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. They can sign our petition, they can write to the Leaders Debate, and I will have a meeting this afternoon with a lawyer in Toronto if we can do something. But I looked at the legislation creating the Leaders Debate, and there's no appeal there, so that would be very difficult for us to sue them or do something under the law.
Well, as you might remember, back in 2019, True North took the Leaders Debate Commission to court. We demanded a stay, and a federal judge actually intervened and ruled on our behalf and said that Andrew Lawton would be allowed to report on that election and get into the Leaders Debate. So, we've had some luck suing them, Maxime. You might have to do the same. I want to ask you about immigration, because that is one of the strongest issues that you've been speaking about since the inception of the People's Party back back in 2018, that was one of the things that was the starkest difference between you and the Conservatives. I think the problem of unchecked mass immigration without any kind of integration program has just absolutely deteriorated the country. And things have gotten so much worse since then, to the point where poll numbers actually reflect the fact that Canadians do want to curb our immigration program. Even the Liberals have had to admit that. What is your position now in 2025 when it comes to deportations and Canada's immigration policy?
Yeah, what we said in 2019, we wanted at that time to have fewer immigrants, a maximum of 150,000 a year, with also being sure that we'll do an interview with them. That was a very reasonable position at that time, but some people were saying because of that position that we were racist. And actually, that's not, we don't do politics based on race. We don't do identity politics. We are doing politics based on conviction and our strong vision for this country. So now our position, because of that mass immigration, because of the unvetted immigrants that are foreigners that are coming here, and our open borders policy, we need to have a moratorium on immigration. That's our position. And actually, that will help to solve the housing crisis. Contrary to the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre, they don't want to tackle that. They don't want to stop that mass immigration. We need to do that not only for the economy. As you know, our standard of living is going down because the economy is growing. We have more and more people who are coming to our country, but the growth of our economy is a little bit slower. So the GDP per capita is lower, and we are poor. Our standard of living is going down. So we need to change that. And by the way, it's not only because of the economy, it's because also the unity of our country, the social tissue of our country. These people are coming, you said it, they are not integrating into our society. They're living in ghettos, and we don't want that. We want a person that will come here being able to have a job and being part of our society. But that's why, at the same time, we need to end the Multiculturalism Act. We need to repeal that act. Nobody will speak about that. And, I like to call my ex-friend Pierre Poilievre Pandering Pierre, because he's pandering to every ethnic communities. And for him, the most important is to have a direct flight to Amritsar as soon as possible. For us, it's not that. We need to have that moratorium for a couple of years, and after that, go back to a sustainable and reasonable immigration policy.
If you look back at Canada's history, we've had exactly that. We've had periods of huge influxes of immigrants, followed by periods of very low acceptance and low admittance into our country. Times where people can just sort of intermix and integrate and form a new kind of culture and society. That hasn't happened in 3 decades. What would you do about the people, Max, that are already here that have not integrated? People like we see the pro-Hamas protesters going around Canada. We've seen all kinds of conflicts between Hindus and Sikhs, turning into violence sometimes, violence between Muslims and Jews. What would you do about the problem of student visas that have been issued? People who have come who have no interest in appreciating or integrating into Canadian society. How do you fix that problem?
Yeah, I will. I will do what I said to one of the students in PI last summer, when I told that students, after your permit, if you're not leaving the country, you must be deported. Actually, we have a lot of illegals in our country, and for me, based on the law, an illegal, sorry, is a person who came here like a student, but after that, when you have your diploma, you must go back to your country of origin. That was the case in the past. We didn't have any problems with that. But right now, it's not the case with these fake students coming from India. And yes, they have to go back. We will need to deport them. And my opponent, Pierre, said, oh, no, they must stay here. I hope he will change position on that. But that being said, same thing for the foreign temporary foreign workers. After your work, you must be deported. But at the same time, if you don't respect our law here in Canada, why the federal government will give you permanent residency? That's the position of the Trudeau government right now. They want to give them a permanent residency when they don't respect our legislation. They want to give them a nice gift. You know, you are supposed to go back to your country, but because you're here, we're going to give you the permanent residency. What is the message that we are sending to the world about that? So our position is yes, deportation, and we know there's about 50,000 to 500,000 illegals in our country right now. We don't know the exact number. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. We need to put all our resources that we have to find them and deport them. Actually, it will help us with our relationship with the US. President Trump is asking that to us. Control our borders, secure our borders, control your immigration, deport the illegals, reinvest in your defense. If we do all that, we won't have 25% tariffs. Trudeau won't speak about that, or the liberals won't speak about that. The only concern right now for the liberals and the conservative, they agree with that, is to axe the tax. And Polyev wants an election on the tax. But for me, the election must be a referendum on the immigration, ending that mass immigration and starting that mass deportation.
I think so many Canadians are on board with you with that issue. You mentioned Polyev a few times, and I want to ask you, Max, because you left the Conservative Party of Canada, right? You were an MP for many years under that party banner. You were a cabinet minister in Stephen Harper's government, and you left the party because of Andrew Scheer becoming leader. You didn't think he was strong enough to beat Trudeau, which he wasn't. Under Aaron O'Toole, the party swayed even further to the left and was basically running as a Liberal Party in the last election. But now we have Pierre Poilievre, and Pierre Poilievre is seen as representing sort of more of the conservative right flank of the party. And so I'm wondering, does Pierre Poilievre in that leadership role, does that change the equation at all for you? Would you ever consider a day where you would go back towards that party?
No, absolutely not. And when I resigned, you may remember I said this party, the Conservative Party of Canada, is morally and intellectually corrupt. Why I said that? I said that because they didn't have the courage to promote conservative values. They are doing politics following the polls. And yes, right now, Polyev is doing the same. He doesn't do politics by conviction. He's following the polls and the public opinions. And for me, the public opinion has been manipulated by the leftist media and the leftist politicians. So Polyev is a follower of the public opinion, is not a leader. We are leading. We have a vision for this country, and we are speaking about issues that may not be that popular today, but knowing that it's the right thing to do, like for immigration, for example, or the gender ideology. I said before Trump in 2019 that we must tend that there's only two sexes. At that time, Trump did nothing about that. I'm very pleased that yesterday he decided to do something, but that's the way we are doing politics. So Polyev now is actually on immigration. Trudeau is stronger on immigration. He did admit that he made a big mistake, and now he tried to control immigration. So he has a more anti-immigration in brackets than Polyev on that. And so that's why I'm saying to Canadians, I won't move with Polyev. We cannot trust him. But by the way, there's a good news for your viewers and Canadians. Polyev will win the next election. Look at the polls. So there's no splitting the vote. So now Canadians can vote for the People's Party, can vote in line with their values. We will keep Polyev honest. We will push him in the right direction. We will be your insurance policy that Polyev will do what he said that he may do. So we need a voice, and the more the People's Party will have, the more stronger will be, the more influential we will be. So there's a win-win there. And I'm very pleased to look at the polls. And, we want, a lot of people are telling me, I don't vote for you, Bernier, because we want to get rid of Trudeau and the Liberals. That's happening. It's a question of time. Like you said, we want an election as soon as possible, but they need that voice. We need that voice in the leaders' debate, and Canadians need that voice in Parliament. So there's no risk to vote for the BPC. You are voting in line with your convictions, in line with your conscience when you're doing that. And for us, we won't do any compromise with our ideas. So answering your questions, No, never. The decision that I took to create the PPC, the People's Party, was the best political decision in my political career.
Well, it's interesting because there's so many parties on the left, on the far left, and they all agree with each other on so many of the issues. And typically, it's the Conservative Party that is the outlier. And it would be nice if there were more voices to represent Canadians who aren't part of that sort of left wing, woke socialist, I guess, plurality. I don't know if they're the majority of the country. I don't think so. So it does make sense in a multi-party system. I want to ask you about the PPC's electoral record because you used to win Beauce quite handily when you were part of the Conservatives. But in 2019, you lost. You had 38% of the vote back then. Then in 2021, with a weaker Conservative leader, I would argue, you only got 18% there. The PPC polls around 2% nationally right now. So what would you consider to be a win in the next election? What are your goals as party leader? And is there any situation where you would decide to step down and no longer lead this party?
Yeah, about stepping down, as you may know, we are, and I'm the only leader of a national political party that after every election, there's a leadership review. The last leadership review of my leadership was after the election in 2029, when we had 5% of the vote, and the members of the party said at 96% that they want me to stay. So what I'm telling every Canadian now, after the election, we will have a leadership review like I'm doing. So I'm pretty confident. But like I said, I like what I'm doing, and it's a long term. It's a revolution that we are looking for, and you cannot do a revolution in 1 or 2 elections. It took more than 15 years for the Green Party to have one candidate elected. It won't take 15 years, but I'm there for the long run. I will be there at this election, and I can tell you if the members of the party voted for me after the election to stay the leader, I will be there for the 2029 election. That will be another opportunity for the People's Party of Canada. But look at the populist movement, not only in Canada, in Europe, in other countries. Nigel Farage, Nigel, he tried to be elected 7 times. And with 15% of the vote, he was able to have 6 MPs elected. So, because of our electoral system, that will take time, and I know it, and our supporters know it also. They're there with us for the long run. So, about the score of the election, yes, the first election in 2019, we had 1.6% of the vote. Every commentators, mainstream commentators, were saying Bernie is dead, the PPC is dead. The second election, we had 5%. Oh, they said they have 5% because of COVID. This party will go down. Actually, at the next election and this election, I strongly believe that it may be an election on immigration for the future of this country. And so we have the solution for that. For 5%, I hope that we will grow our percentage of the vote. And I want to be elected also. I will have to decide the next couple of weeks where I will run, maybe in Manitoba or back in Beauce. I don't know. I'm doing some consultation right now. But it can be, if we double our score from 5 to 10, it still be difficult to have a candidate elected. It took 15% of the vote for Nigel to have people elected. So, and our people know that we want to grow the percentage of our vote to be more influential. And I hope that at this election in 2025, I'll be elected, or one of our candidates will be elected. We'll see. But the People's Party is there for the long term, and our goal is to grow a percentage of the vote, and we'll see what will happen.
So when do you expect to make the decision about what riding you will run in?
Early February, in a couple of weeks from now. I did call people in Portage Lisgar. As you know, I did run there in the by-election. I had about, I think, 17 or 18%. And in Beauce, I have a lot of friends who told me, Maxime, you're a guy from Beauce, you must come back. And so I said, we're going to look at it. And yeah, I'll take the decision early February.
Okay, you mentioned that yesterday Donald Trump signed a number of executive orders. So many of them, Maxime, seem like they could have come right out of your PPC policy
That
book there. So we saw that he withdrew from the Paris Climate Accord. Um, he withdrew from the World Health Organization. Like you mentioned, he got rid of the gender ideology guidelines and got rid of a bunch of the DEI initiatives. So there are only two genders, male and female, officially the policy. One thing that hasn't gotten a lot of reporting, but is hugely significant, is that he is going to reinstate any service member who was expelled from the military for refusing to take the COVID-19 jab, and included full back pay. So, what do you make of Trump? What do you make of these executive orders? And how can we get some of these policies implemented in Canada?
answering that question, vote People's Party of Canada, and you'll have more chances to have these policies. That being said about COVID 19, yeah, we said the same thing. I said during the COVID hysteria, I was the only one there. I was supposed to be crazy, but I was the only national leader there, out there, speaking with people, doing rallies. And I said to all these civil servants who were, not able to work anymore because they decided to not take that shot. I just said they must be back to their job and with full compensation. And I'm very pleased that Trump is doing that. That's the policy of the People's Party of Canada. And yes, we want to have that discussion about COVID 19, what happened in our country. We want to reopen that debate, having a full discussion about it, and being able to compensate all these civil servants who lost their job because of their health personal decision. So I'm very pleased with all that because, like you said, Trump is putting his country first. And what we want to do, we want to put Canada first. But for us, it is not a slogan. Trump is against foreign wars and he wants peace in Ukraine. I said that. Polyev is, he wants to give more money and more aid to Ukraine. And that's like the conservative, like Harper, the war in Afghanistan. So we are for peace and prosperity, like Trump. Migration compact, we want to withdraw from that, but Polyev is okay with that. So Trump is not a globalist. Trump, he is putting his country first. We are not globalists. I said that in the debate in 2019, and all our policies are there to put our country first. Yes, the World Health Organization, we must not be part of that. Foreign aid, we must cut that $10 billion and bring that money home. So I'm very pleased with Trump. Yeah, and about the tariff and the economy, yeah, that's a challenge, but we just have to let go the cartel in supply management, putting more money in our defense, and having that moratorium on immigration. I'm pretty sure that Trump will be happy and we won't have these tariffs.
Well, I want to mention, just because you brought it up, you mentioned Harper and the war in Afghanistan, but Maxime, you were the Minister of Foreign Affairs in 2007, 2008, which overlapped with Canada's time in
Yeah.
Afghanistan. So do you regret some of the decisions that you made at that time? Do you go back and say that you no longer support that war, or what is your position on that?
No, that war was a mistake, but I was part of the government. That was the main policy of the government. Remember, we did that to save women and young girls. That was the talking points. And now, the Taliban's are back. And yeah, I was the foreign affairs minister for a couple of months, and my job was to promote that. But remember, when I was in Afghanistan, I said that the governor over there was not the right person at the right time for the right reason. And Harper didn't like that. But at the end, I was not that successful to be a foreign affairs minister. I was very, very good when I was industry minister. I learned a lot doing that job. But and so the war in Afghanistan was a mistake. Right now, we can admit that the US was a big mistake. So I like the position that Jean Chrétien took about the war with the Iraq. He said that we don't need to be there, and he was strong, and we can as a country be having a different policy, foreign policies than the U.S. and being friends. So I did the same with the war in Ukraine. I said we must not participate in that. So yes, the war in Afghanistan was a mistake. That was a big mistake from our government, the conservative government. but also the US government at that time.
One of the main things that Trump is saying now about Canada is that we don't live up to our NATO obligations of having 2% of our GDP being spent on the military. What is your position on the size of Canada's military, the role, and whether we should beef it up and start spending more?
Yeah, we must reinvest in our Canadian forces, and our Canadian forces now is a woke organization. You know, it needs to be based on meritocracy. It's not the case anymore. So before reinvesting in our Canadian forces, we must change the culture of the Canadian forces. And I'm not proud of our Canadian forces right now. So let's do that, let's reinvest, and we can do that. You know, we have a huge deficit. We can tackle that deficit in 1 year by cutting foreign aid, saving $10 billion, by cutting corporate welfare, saving $10 billion, by cutting subsidies to the mainstream media, all these subsidies, about $2 billion. So let's be serious about our budget, balancing our budget. And after that, the year after, we'll be able to reinvest. And yes, at least 2% of our GDP in our defense.
Wonderful. What would you advise, or what would you be doing differently when it comes to Donald Trump, the supposed threat of incoming tariffs, and just how to make of that relationship? Because if you watch the Canadian media, especially the CBC, basically they're calling Danielle Smith a traitor, suggesting that it's appeasement or even treason for her to be going down there and negotiating on behalf of Alberta. What would you be doing differently, or what would you say should be our approach to dealing with the Americans right now?
I'm 100% with Danielle Smith on that. She's doing the right thing for her province, but also for the country. Don't forget all the income that the federal government is receiving from the oil and gas industry. It's coming because of Alberta. So being serious about that, she's doing a good job. But actually, what I don't like, all these other premiers and the prime minister, they want to be ready to have a trade war with the US, a commercial war with the US. We won't win that. We won't be able. It would hurt our country big, but it will hurt also the US. We need to just sit down with President Trump and tell him, you know, tariff is a tax for US consumers. What do you want? What do you want? You want us to fix our border? We'll do it. You want us to reinvest in our forces? We'll do it because it's good for us and it's good for you. And I understand why he wants that. You know, the last 3 years, the US were able to stop about 400 terror suspects at their borders, and 80% of them were coming from Canada. Last year, they stopped at their borders 200,000 illegals who were crossing the border from Canada to the US. We need to be serious about that. We are not. But now the country is ready for a commercial war. That's crazy. That will hurt us and the US. We need to go there and tell the truth and speak like Danielle Smith she's doing right now.
Well, maybe you should be talking with Kevin O'Leary and getting yourself down to Mar-a-Lago there, Max, so you can have these conversations with the incoming administration, because I think we need more voices like yours. So you said that you think that the ballot box issue on this upcoming election will be immigration. Pierre Poilievre is trying to make it about carbon taxes and cost of living, and I think the Liberals would happily have the election be about Donald Trump. What do you think the biggest issues, aside from those three, facing Canadians are, and what will the PPC do about it?
Immigration, yes, the economy, and actually also the unity of our country. What is nobody.
Okay, well, it looks like we have lost Maxime Bernier there, but we thank him and appreciate him and his time. And we will wrap up the show at that. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining and tuning into the Candice Malcolm Show. We'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you, and God bless.